Hello again, this is Mr. D, and wanted to talk to you and touch base with you about supply. So, hopefully you survived the demand lesson, and supply is very, very similar to demand. It's actually a mirror image of the demand curve, so it should sound very similar to you. So the first thing about supply is the definition of supply. It's another conditional definition, and instead of producers willing and able in a given time period consumers willing and able in a given time period to consume, to buy, this is producers willing and able in a given time period to produce. And this is what the supply curve looks like. It is upward sloping from left to right, whereas demand was downward sloping from left to right. Okay, so the law of supply states that as prices go up, the quantity supplied that producers are willing to supply also goes up. And so we would say that the law of supply, that there is a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. And just like with demand, there's only one thing that can cause a change in quantity supplied, and that is price. And so instead of an inverse relationship, supply has a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. Okay, so our two tools, just like with demand, we start off with the supply schedule, and as you can see, as the price increases, so does the quantity supplied. And we plot those points on a graph, and we get an upward sloping supply curve. And with demand, there was three reasons why the demand curve is downward sloping. It was because of the substitution effect, the income effect, and because of the law of diminishing marginal utility, where there's only really one reason why the supply curve is upward sloping, and that's the law of increasing opportunity cost, which states that as you increase production more and more and more, it becomes more and more expensive. So, supply schedule, supply curve, when you're asked to talk about, 2 points on the line, point 1 and a movement to point 2, we have had an increase in price, and therefore we had an increase in quantity supplied. Okay, so enough of quantity supplied, so what does a change in supply look like? Well, just like with demand, it would be caused by the determinants of supply. And so what causes a supply curve to shift, there's millions of things that would cause it to shift, but we try to put them all in categories called the determinants of supply. The first determinant deals with the factors of production, and that's the price of inputs. It's also the most common cause of a shift in supply. The second one is government tools. Very easy to spot because it's going to mention our government, but there are several different types of government tools that we need to have a handle on. The third one is technology, and that's part of the module just to discuss technology and its changes to supply. And number of sellers, that's the actual number of companies in the market. And then finally, a very tricky one, and that's future expectation, which deals with forecasting and people's view of the market. Okay, so a positive shift in supply is a rightward shift. Try not to say downward shift, because movement up and down the line is a change in quantity supplied. Movement in supply is a shift to the right or a shift to the left. So this would be a negative or leftward shift in supply. Okay, so our first determinant, again, the most common one is inputs. Basically anything to do with land, labor, or capital. If the price of inputs goes up, it's going to cause a negative shift. If the price of inputs goes down, it's going to cause a positive shift. So factors of production is the key part. So if you look at the manufacturing of DVDs, what would cause a positive or a negative shift? So if the resource cost goes down, let's say that this dude decides to take less money for pay, or we can cut back on his health benefits, well then that would be a positive shift. Or if the price of oil went down, so that would also be in the manufacture of the DVD disc, well that would be a positive shift. But if this person demanded paid vacation or a higher wage, that would cause a negative shift. Or if the price of oil went up, it would cause a negative shift. Okay, government tools. Government's easy to spot. It's going to mention our government, but there's three different types of government tools. There's taxes. So if taxes go up, it's a negative shift. If taxes go down, it's a positive shift. And then there's subsidies. And a subsidy, which you're going to look at in the module, is when the government pays businesses to do what the government wants them to do. A good example of that is if the government wants farmers to grow a certain crop, like corn this season, they would offer them a subsidy, which is money to do what the government wants you to do. And a regulation is when the government tells you what to do with no money. So regulations would cause a negative shift, and relaxing regulations would cause a positive shift. So yeah, taxes are a pretty easy one to spot. If taxes go down, it's a positive shift. Taxes go up, which they normally will, then it will be a negative shift. Okay, subsidies, free money from the government. If the government offers a subsidy, it's a positive shift. And if they take them away, it would cause a negative shift to that market. Okay, technology. That's a pretty common one. As technology changes, it's always going to be a positive shift. It's kind of hard to write a negative shift technology. Number 4 is number of sellers or number of competitors. Either way you word it is fine. And the market itself likes competition. So as competition goes up, if the number of sellers goes up, it's a positive shift. The number of sellers goes down, it's a negative shift. Okay, this one is the one you got to pay close attention to, and that's future expectations. Basically, the way it works is that if a company thinks something positive is going to happen in the future, like they think they're going to get a higher price for their product, they think that demand is going to go up, something good is going to happen, they'll still produce, but they won't ship the item. And so if something good's going to happen in the future, it will cause a negative shift in supply, and they'll wait for that good thing to occur. The other hand is if they think something bad is going to happen in the future, if they're certain that something bad is going to happen in the future, if they feel that something bad is going to happen in the future, that will cause a positive shift now. They will try to sell everything that they have before that bad thing occurs. So future expectations is a little tricky. Oil markets have a lot to do with future expectations. If you expect the future price of oil to go down, well, then you might wait for that good thing to happen. Might cause a positive shift. Okay, so the biggest challenge just with the demand is making sure that you understand that there's a difference between quantity supplied and supplied. What does a change in quantity supplied look like? What does a change in supply look like? A change in supply, like we just discussed, is a shift in supply. And whereas quantity supplied is movement on the line, it can only be caused by price. And so making sure that you understand those two things is key. Okay, so I'm hoping that this little talk helped you out. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. There's a link to this PowerPoint, so if you want to take your time and go through it a little bit slower. And good luck with this module. And next week we'll be talking about putting supply and demand together.